Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today I am going to be sitting and talking about why we got induced at 36 weeks and why we were considered a high-risk pregnancy. So if you haven't seen our birth story yet, then you wouldn't know that we were induced at 36 weeks pregnant, and it was quite the process. If you guys want to watch that video, I'll go ahead and have it linked down below, but it might be a good idea to watch this one first. That way you can kind of get a background and as to why we were being in the hospital at 36 weeks. So it all kind of goes back to when I was about 18 or so weeks along, and I started to get this pain in my ribs, right in the right upper quadrant area, I think is the medical term they used for it. But I started to get like this dull pain. It wasn't anything severe, but it definitely was bothersome and definitely made me notice it. Along with this pain, I also started to notice itching around my stomach, my chest, and my legs, and as well as my feet. But I kind of chalked both of these things up to just pregnancy. You know, when you're about 18 or so weeks, things really start to stretch and grow. Baby starts to get bigger, things start to move. So I kind of just assumed, oh, maybe my organs are kind of getting pushed in places, and that's why I'm getting some discomfort. It's totally normal. And then the itching when your skin stretches along with pregnancy and you get swollen and stuff like that, because pregnancy is just that wonderful. It's totally normal to experience some itching, and I just kind of chalked both of these things up to normal pregnancy issues. However, I did decide to mention them around 20 weeks when I was at my appointment, just because they were uncomfortable, obviously. So I wanted to sort of see if the doctor would have any suggestions of like what I could use, what I could do to try and make it feel better. The doctor was a little bit concerned about something called cholestasis when I mentioned these symptoms being shown together and coming right around the same time. If you don't know what cholestasis is, it is essentially an issue with pregnancy. Pardon me if my definition of this is kind of wonky. I'm not a medical person, so I don't know exactly, but just from what I was told while I was pregnant, essentially it's an issue with pregnancy that's not super common, but happens usually around 34 weeks or so. And essentially what's happening is your body reacts really poorly to the hormones of pregnancy, causing your liver to have an overproduction or something like that of bile. So there's just a buildup of bile in your body, and so your body's instant reaction is just to kind of dump it into your bloodstream, which is not the greatest idea because then it can cross over through the placenta to the baby. So like I said, it usually doesn't happen until 34 weeks or so. So for me to be complaining about symptoms at 20 weeks was kind of alarming. Along with that, it's usually not concerning and like dangerous to the mom or the baby until you start to get closer to that 34 week situation, when it can start to cause issues like preterm labor and issues while you're in labor, as well as, unfortunately, stillbirth. So when my doctor said she was concerned about this, she decided to go ahead and do a blood test. Because I was 20 weeks along and just starting to complain about the symptoms, nothing really came up on the blood work. So they weren't super concerned. They said it could be a gallbladder issue, and just to watch what I was eating and see if certain foods would kind of flare up the pain in my ribs. And then as for my itching, just maybe it's probably normal pregnancy itching, and to avoid anything with fragrances and things like that. Now, stemming off of that, I decided to actually leave this doctor's office for loads and loads of reasons, including them lying to me about test results and giving my appointments away to other patients and dismissing me. There's lots of different reasons. So around 24, maybe somewhere between 24 and 26 weeks, I started to experience severe pain in my ribs. It suddenly got really worse. Anytime that I moved or breathed, it hurt. I didn't want anyone touching it because it hurt. It just didn't feel good. And it had nothing to do with what I was eating. Like they said, it might. And my itching was also getting worse, keeping me up at night. It was not a good time. So I wanted to go to a doctor, but I didn't necessarily know which doctor's office to go to because my old one was still in the process of sending my records over to my new office. So the new office didn't have my records, so I couldn't go there. But I didn't want to go to my old office because even though they have my records, I did not like them, and I didn't want to deal with just kind of getting shut down again. So I didn't really know what to do. I contacted my new office, explained the situation, and they were fortunately able to fit me in that day for an appointment. Once I was there, they went ahead and did a whole checkup. They checked everything, felt my pain area, and they said that they think it also was a gallbladder issue, but that they wanted to get a second opinion. So they went ahead, got another doctor, got an opinion from them, and that doctor actually did think that it could be cholestasis, and that even though my levels weren't rising, it's because I'm probably too early to even be having the levels rising where they need them to in order to classify you as like, yeah, you have cholestasis. But also in addition to that, usually if someone has the symptoms, it's not explainable or dismissible by anything else, chances are they have cholestasis. Went ahead and did some blood work, and sure enough, that blood work actually did come back a little bit elevated. So at that point, they wanted to start seeing me every single week for a normal checkup, just to check the baby, as well as a non-stress test, which is essentially 2 little monitors that get put on your stomach just to monitor your contractions and make sure that baby's heart rate is doing good and that he's not in stress at all. And then also to do blood work to watch my levels to make sure that they didn't skyrocket out of nowhere and I would need like an emergency C-section or something. Around 35 weeks, I actually ended up going to see a maternal and fetal specialist, which is someone who specializes in issues with your pregnancies and things like that. And he kind of talked to me about cholestasis and just kind of gave me a little bit more information as to what I can expect. And he did inform me that at 36 to 37 weeks, I would probably need to be induced, just because if I carried any farther, obviously, like I said, there can be issues and complications. So we were kind of prepared for like in a week or two to get induced. And he also told me that the chances of me having cholestasis again in the future are pretty high. I think once you have it with your first pregnancy or one of your pregnancies, the chances of you getting it with your next one, I think, is like 50 or 60%. I could be totally wrong about these statistics, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around that. And then for me, since I showed symptoms so early, I'm just kind of like a rare case, and that it's probably going to be closer to about 70 to 80% chance for me. And right around this appointment, I also ended up waking up in the middle of the night with really, really bad, I don't know if it was cramps or contractions. It was not good. I never really had Braxton Hicks throughout my pregnancy. I only would maybe if I kind of like exerted myself too much, but this was nowhere near that. Like I genuinely thought that, oh no, I'm in labor. And of course, John was away working on his boat. So I was like, of course the baby's gonna come in the middle of the night when no one is here. So I was up for maybe like 2 or so hours in pain with contraction-y cramps. I don't know what you want to call them. And so that later on that day, I did go to my doctor's office to kind of get checked out, and they said baby looked fine. I wasn't in pain anymore. And then in addition to that, they decided to go ahead and give me 2 steroid shots, which essentially just help the baby's lungs kind of progress a little bit faster. That way, if I happen to go into preterm labor, or like I said, I was getting induced at 36 weeks. So just to kind of help him out, it's not a full-term baby at 36 weeks. So in case there was any issues, it would kind of try and help that. So I got 1 shot that day while I was in the office, and then I believe I went back 24 hours later for the next shot. Both of those hurt really bad, but again, obviously worth it because we ended up having no complications with his lungs or anything. And so from there, we ended up getting induced at 36 weeks. We went in literally the day that I was 36 weeks. And if you guys want to know the whole birth story, you guys can go ahead and check out that video down below. But essentially, that's kind of what happened. We had to get induced because I had cholestasis, and it was not a fun time. So that is my story of how I was a high-risk pregnancy and why we had to be induced at 36 weeks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you guys want to see more. And all of our Instagrams will be linked down below if you want to follow us and get some behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on. You can go ahead and check that out.